All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Thomas and Catherine and Lori. And today we are continuing our discussion of Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Myss. We're in chapter 7, and we're talking about the 12 houses of the archetypal wheel. So we are in the section that is titled The Second House, Life Values. It's on page 211 in the hard copy. But before we get going with that, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then Catherine, you can take it with the reading. Jump out, guys.
I thought Dan was, but Lori Emmons in Denver.
And Sisik in Las Vegas. You normally start us off, so I let you start off.
Oh,
Yeah, Thomas from Bangalore.
Good morning, everybody. It's Catherine Clement. All right.
Hi.
Second house, life values, second chakra. The second house of the archetypal wheel corresponds to Taurus, an earth sign that rules your relationship to the land in its broadest sense. It represents what you most value and hold dear. In energy terms, the second house represents the next stage in the formation of the self. Now that I'm here, what's mine and what do I want out of life? What power is essential to my interacting with physical life? This house represents your appreciation for the physical nature of life, the objects of this earth that appeal to your ego and spirit, and what you need most to feel grounded in the world. This house most reflects which objects or energy you associate with earthly power, like money or status, ownership, art, the capacity to control others, sensuality, and beauty. These are the most seductive means through which the spirit becomes attached to physical form. The archetype that resides within this house, therefore, is the one that is most aligned with your relationship to physical power and its icons. Glenn had the Midas archetype in his second house. He converted all of his entrepreneurial ideas into physical gold. He had the proverbial touch. But like Midas, he also struggled with how the power of money challenged the power of his spirit. Just as Midas killed his daughter when he had inadvertently changed her to metal, Glenn's emotional life was cold and barren. For years, he was unaware of anything except money. In his relationships with others with whom he now recognizes he has contracts, the question often became whether he valued his finances more than he valued them. One of the central lessons he must learn is how to interact with other people without needing to control or dominate them, and to interact with the things of the world without being controlled by them. The challenge of this house is to see beyond the physical form of our attachments to objects, money, status, power, and all the other manifestations of the physical world to your spiritual values. People often suffer great anguish because they believe that to be happy, they must possess a particular person, place, or thing. And yet, the ability to love unconditionally is antithetical to attachment. Third house, self-expression and siblings, which is the third and fifth chakras. Once you establish your values, you move into self-expression, how you present what you are and what you hold dear to the world. The third house, aligned with Gemini, an air sign that rules communication, represents your capacity to express yourself as an individual as well as your siblings. The symbolic link of siblings with communication represents the natural process of specialization, of first discovering your voice among your fellow, quote, children. Siblings, therefore, should be interpreted not only as your biological family members, but also as those who aid your growth. Because the energy of your third house involves both your sense of self-esteem and your self-expression, it resonates with the third and fifth chakras. It contains the lessons inherent in learning about the causes and effects of your choices, how you wield your own power. It reveals how you direct your energy into the world, how you put it into motion, and how you engage with the laws of magnetic attraction and cause and effect. You want to become conscious of how you use your personal energy and power so that you become aware of the consequences of your thoughts and deeds. Becoming conscious means awakening to your own power and learning to direct it responsibly. The archetype in residence in your third house influences how you weigh your decisions. Choices that are consciously negative or damaging, especially those aimed at deliberately harming other people, represent the challenging or shadow aspect of the third house. A man named John in a workshop had the servant archetype in his third house. This situation brought him endless delight because he believed that his role in life was to be of service to others. John brought this commitment into everything he did and into all of his relationships. The idea of being of service had inspired him as early as he could recall. When the time came for him to choose a profession, he went on a retreat to pray for guidance. In his prayer, he said that what he did in life was of no concern to him and that he would do whatever heaven directed him to, because he had faith that the divine would place him where he could best be of service. This demonstration of faith in the unknown would not be possible for most people, but John also had the wanderer archetype as a companion. Residing in his ninth house, which is spirituality, the wanderer led John to relocate to a different part of the country every 2 to 3 years, working at odd jobs. For John, this path of service gave him a feeling of freedom that he loved and also allowed him to meet people from all over. Because he clung to no special place, he felt free to be fully himself and to give unconditionally. He also felt abundantly satisfied with the simplest pleasures, most of which came from spending time with people who needed someone to talk to or any other help that he could offer. I have never met another person like John, and for a moment I was tempted to ask him if his first name might be Saint. He certainly radiated a quality of grace that inspired others to see the great power in service. The challenge of the third house is to become conscious of your motivations. Every thought, word, action, and deed is an expression of your power, and ultimately only two genuine motivations stir the psyche: the empowerment or disempowerment of the self and others. Do you want me to do the fourth? Or is that enough?
It doesn't matter to me. I don't have a lot yet.
Okay, I'll do the fourth.
Okay.
Fourth, home, first and fourth chakras. The fourth house corresponds to Cancer, the first of the 3 water signs of the zodiac chart. Water is the element associated with our emotional natures, so the archetype that resides within your fourth house has the strongest influence on the foundation of your emotional nature. Your self-expression, be it as an individual or through creation, needs to be grounded, to have a home. The fourth house is connected both with the home you came from and with your present home. The word or image home clearly has many meanings, and in the dream state, it is often associated with the true residence of the heart or your deepest passion in life. The theme of home that rules this house includes your connections to both your biological and your extended families. The archetype that resides in this house is the one that has the leading influence on the emotional energies associated with all that represents home to you. Because the fourth house relates both to your family roots and to your emotional life, it corresponds to the energies of your first and fourth chakras. The challenging aspects of the fourth house can include toxic memories and emotions, the consequences of which can be depression and melancholy. When I am working with a person who has unfinished business from painful childhood experiences, which is very common, I refer to the archetype in that person's fourth house as my main source of insight for beginning a dialogue. A woman named Lydia, for example, was coping with the memory of a drug-addicted mother who often left home for months at a time. When Lydia's mother was home, she would manage to stay clean for anywhere from a week to 3 months, but inevitably she turned again to drugs. Lydia told me several stories about how her mother returned from a bender only to make off with any item in the house that she could sell for drug money. One time, her mother returned to their home while Lydia was in class at her local college, gathered up all of Lydia's personal belongings that might be of value, and sold or bartered them for drugs. After that, Lydia did not agree to see her mother for 7 years. When I met Lydia, she was 28 and had yet to reconcile with her mother. Lydia radiated the energy of someone who could shower the child within people with abundant compassion. Yet she had a capacity to feel the hurt in others and was constantly motivated to help them. It helped her greatly to note that her mother archetype resided in her 4th house. One way to interpret this alignment was to suggest that mothering others, including her own mother, would be central to her life's journey. Lydia's husband, whom she married at age 26, lavished love on her and felt that she was his ideal mate. I love this woman beyond anyone, he told me. The moment I saw her, I knew that she would be my wife and the perfect mother to our children. And that is exactly what she is, the perfect wife and the perfect mother. The challenge of the 4th house is to complete the unfinished business of our childhood years and to establish healthy homes for ourselves as adults. You have a choice between handing down to your children and loved ones your family wounds and patterns of negativity and passing on to them optimism and the love of life. Healing your personal history so that you do not pass on your wounds is therefore essential to creating a healthy home for yourself and your family. All right, I'll stop there.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. That's some powerful information there, especially that
Yeah.
last moment of healing your personal history so you don't pass on your own wounds. If only we could like know this when we're a young adult before we have children, that we need to work on all this stuff before we have kids so that we don't pass on these patterns of negativity. I look back at my own life with my kids and I can see how I did exactly that, passed on what I didn't even realize were wounds, but just behaviors, if you will, that, was just repeating the patterns I was taught from my parents. And I feel like I had a fairly good childhood, but yet at the same time, I can still see a lot of my behaviors that I recognize are not so positive and where they probably came from in my childhood. So yeah, it's been nice to know some of these things. This is what we should be taught in school versus a lot of the mumbo jumbo we did get taught. But of course, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have even listened.
Yeah, that's the point. As kids, we probably would say, "Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything, and I'm not going to pay attention." But uh, I know for me that when you were reading about the this last one, Gemini, I think no, Cancer. I'm not Cancer, but I'm a water sign, and this everything because my birthday's in September. Um, a lot of what it was saying in there, I'm like, oh my God, that is that is in a lot of that respects me. You know, I I I am rooted in my past home from my childhood, and then what I had, from the time I was 11, 12 on, and to my home that I have now my home is my sanctuary. That's my place, but I've made it my own that is fitting and comfortable for me, but did not remind me of anything I had from my childhood, except for when I was at my grandparents' house. And to me, my home feels kind of more like what I felt at my grandparents' house. But some of the aspects of what I've lived through and gone through, like Samantha, I can see where some of those wounds that I had, I kind of have passed on to those around me while I don't have kids of my own, but those people around me that are involved in my life, I have kind of seen where you know, because I can, like my mother, I can get pissed like in a minute. I mean, I'll be fine, and then you say something or do something, and it will just hit me wrong, and I can be in that moment just. Or the other thing is, I can really shut out the world, so to speak. Like I can deal with it and be with it, like when I'm out Ubering and stuff. And then, but the minute I get home, I'm just like, oh yes, thank you, go, away. Don't, I just don't want to. I'm kind of like my mom when she would hide and lock herself in a room for days and a couple weeks, few weeks on end, and the only time I'd see her come out was to refill her iced tea glass or maybe go to the bathroom, things like that. And I see where I can be like that at times. It's like I don't want to be out. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to, and yet I crave being around other people. So but looking back and going through all the books we've gone through, I'm learning a lot of those things about me, what makes me up, and I'm like, how have I survived this long in some ways? But yeah, it's interesting to hear that about the cancer. I've so resonated with that, and I'm kind of anxious to see what it says for, I think, what the fifth house, to see what that says.
I'm still trying to absorb what's happened in these. I am Taurus, and when you start out with that, or the book started out with that, I should say. And then recognizing the birth order, that I am the eldest of 5 girls, how much influence a person has over with their siblings, not over them, with their siblings, and how that affects everything. And of course, the circumstances of your childhood, your parents. And I've always dealt with the idea of the thing that people associate with Taurus and how that affects my home life, because I believe I do have the servant or the hospitality archetype within my being, because I really enjoy hosting parties or whatever, or maybe it's just that I like to party. I'm kidding.
You party animal. I can recognize some aspects of that as well, the kind of being the servant, if you will. I mean, of course, like you, Dan, I'm like, I can play that role, and I can play it really well. But yet at the same time, that feeling of deep peace and home is when I'm alone, just by myself, and no one else is here, and no one else is demanding anything from me. And, I mean, I still have stuff to do, obviously. There's always things to do, But at the same time, it's that just the peace of no demand. I don't know if that's what it is. The peace of no one demanding anything from me in a given moment. And it's like a freedom-y thing. I don't know, but I feel like that. But at the same time, I mean, I do enjoy, like you said, Dan, I enjoy interacting with people. I just don't enjoy doing it all the time. So, I don't know. Welcome back, Thomas. What do you think, Jason?
We're all so talkative this morning, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I'm kind of with you, Samantha. If we had sort of learned this stuff and how to use this information earlier, it would make complete sense in referring to it before making any major decisions. Um, you know, I, for the most part, was not, not drawn to and not presented with this sort of information to be introspective with myself. Though I am a pretty introspective person, and something like this would have uh, given me a kind of opened my eyes to all the different aspects of uh, my personality that I hadn't even thought about. So I think for that reason, it would have been greatly beneficial. Um, so that's kind of my thought for the moment.
I can't tell you how many times I say, I wish I'd known then what I know now.
Right? I was looking back in this section on the third house, which is the self-expression siblings, and I underlined a couple of different parts in here that I thought were kind of important. It said you want to become conscious of how you use your personal energy and power so you can become aware of the consequences of your thoughts and deeds. Becoming conscious means awakening to your own power and learning to direct it responsibly. That almost sounds like, okay, if you're a superhero, better watch out, but beware of your, but what is it? With great power comes great responsibility. That's in the Spider-Man movie, they say that, but I think that it is kind of interesting if we think about our own personal energy, and when we kind of look at that for our like being aware of our personal motivations. That was the other part. The challenge of the third house is to become conscious of your own motivations. How do we kind of dig into that a little bit and figure out, I mean, I think in a lot of ways we've discussed over the years, when we have goals and we want to achieve them, and if we have something that we're focused on, then we tend to lean in that direction, right? But if we aren't aware, if we just don't know, how can, I don't know, I'm not sure where I'm trying to go with that, I guess. So let's try to dig into our own things. What do we do? I don't know. I suppose if we're looking at in terms of, say, we get into arguments often with our spouse or our children or coworkers or something along that lines, is then, obviously when we're in that argument, we're having like a power struggle, right? So that could be part of like the personal power side of it, and understanding what motivates us in that moment, in that situation, to be having that interaction in that negative kind of a way, right? What are the motivations behind that? Can we dig into it and learn from that versus just coming away from it angry because it wasn't resolved. I don't know. Kind of random thoughts, or maybe on the other side, if we're struggling with not being as motivated as we want to be, or procrastinating, or any number of things that can come up in our lives, is that we can kind of examine, okay, why are we putting this off? Why am I keep putting this thing off? That, why don't I want to do it? Is it because I ultimately don't feel like it is beneficial to me? Do I feel like I'm obligated to it? Do I feel like it's really not that important? It's not going to get me where I want to go. I mean, we can really kind of dig into different things to see where our internal motivations are coming from, and then work on those. I don't know, just some random thoughts.
That's a tough thing. That's like pouring salt in a wound, because the things of the past are what makes us who we are and how we are today, which is hard to completely heal all of that. I don't know, maybe I'm not the only one who's been through a lot. I know we all have. Rather than sweeping it all under the rug so that it trips everyone that's walking by.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I can relate to that. And I can relate to how that affects me through it affecting others. How, important people in your life are affected by that same thing. And then you realize that it is not their fault, because they also were never given the opportunity to recognize and deal with those things as well. Um, it's sad that we are uh, depending on where we come from, our different ideological backgrounds, mainly our families, that we're deterred from um, even looking in those directions. It's
Mm.
and in the case of, say, moving forward, say maybe you're in a relationship, I could see where if you're in a relationship and you both decide that you want to move forward in a very serious way, that being able to consider these things um, in the light of which would allow you to um, feel okay with it, as in some people, some people may not feel comfortable, maybe with the metaphysical part of this, or the spirituality part of it, or the astrological part of it. But the psychological part of it, maybe they'll can relate to that and understand just that patterning itself, and be willing to be more open to working with it, um, coming from that direction. Um, but perhaps if one of you in the relationship were to say, let's go check our astrological charts and see if we're compatible, one might say, whoa, that's the woo-woo stuff, and I'm not really, I don't believe that. But I mean, and just that simple, I mean, that also is a piece of friction that can hold us back from opening our understanding, and even being able to look at it, you know?
I was just Googling how many people, I knew there wasn't going to be an exact number, but like how many people are engaged in mindset growth type of work, and it said 40%. I think that's a really high number, actually. I think that there's fewer than that personally, but that's just, with the people that I come in contact with on a daily basis, mindset seems to be like the last thing that they're interested in. Um,
Really?
and yet it's the thing that we all need the most, right? And even those of us that, you know, practice this, Samantha and I are starting up another book club with one of the organizations that we belong to. And even within that organization, I can see lack of mindset work, the crumbs that leaves. And it's very challenging. I actually was talking to Chat GPT about it, and it brought up, how Chat GPT had always asked you at the end, if you want me to do this for you, if you want me to summarize another thing or whatever, just let me know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it brought up for me was ways to care without carrying. And I'm telling you, I don't think I've ever known how to do that. I have always cared and carried. And it brought up some really great things, ideas to work around with that. But just those words itself had an impact on me. I was like, what? Like, you think, I mean, it's just a few simple words, but when the right words hit you, it just makes so much sense. And this care without caring, already some of the things that it taught me or suggested for me, I found helpful, and I'll try to bring those back with me next week, because I don't have them up I'm on a different computer at the moment and stuff. But it's just something to think. I just wanted y'all to hear those words too, in case it had the impact on you that it had on me, because now when I start to try to carry, that pops up for me in my brain. I get this little ding, 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 ding. You're carrying. And
Yeah.
one of the ways that I remember that it said, you're carrying, is if when you leave that conversation or that experience, if you're rerunning it in your head over and over again to see if there's a way something could have been done differently or whatever. That's one way to know that you're carrying instead of caring. So
I love that, Catherine, because I definitely am a carrier. Whatever I'm involved with, I ramble over in my head all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, hearing you say that, I've never heard it said that way or put that way. But I also too am a carrier, and I'm probably the deep end of that, because every little thing that I feel is bothering me. Like when I first jumped on, I was talking about, trying to go to bed, and the one dog that I'm housing irritated me. I kept going on and go, well, you just lay down. Well, you just settle down so that way I can settle down, because now you got me. And I was just going on in my own head instead of just ignoring him, let him do his thing and go to sleep. But oh my God, I carry, and I'm still carrying clear from. Maybe that's why I've needed to hear this, because wow, that puts a whole nother framework on it, that I do have the right to sit there and say, okay, that's not the hugest issue. That's not the worst thing in the world. It is what it is. Let it be and move on. But no, I have to spin my wheels on it forever and ever until I feel like I come up with the solution I want that will make me happy.
And then it brings up the idea of being self-absorbed, that what am I doing for myself or about myself, or it's all about me.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking,
definitely, oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. I was thinking about that aspect of that's the kind of the curse of the introspect, right? It's an introspective, is that we keep going over and over and over. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, we do, don't we? And but even sometimes if I'm not replaying things in my head, I'm still carrying. Like I can think of things. I mean, I was asking ChatGPT because of some conflicts between two different businesses that really had nothing to do with me, but it was affecting me. But that's because I was carrying. So, and I think maybe it hits me so hard because of that. I always bring up that the Zen, the Buddha monks that are walking, and there's a puddle in front of them, and a young girl comes up, and one of the monks picks her up and carries her. She asks to be carried over the water, so he carries her over, and then the monks continue to walk and walk and walk, and like the next day or something, one of them, the other monk says, why would you pick her up and carry her over the water like that? Because maybe that's something they're not allowed to do, I don't know. And the other monk says, I put her down yesterday, are you still carrying her? Now obviously it's a much more beautiful quote than the way I just butchered it up, but the point is that hit me. I should have figured it out when that uh, resonated with me so strongly. Just that story of carrying. I should have picked up on that carrying a long time ago. But it was just the way, I don't know, it was just the way ChatGPT said it at the time, and then some of the examples and stuff that it brought up. And I know ChatGPT is not like a therapist or anything, but they have the knowledge of pretty much everything that the therapists are working from. So, as long as you're keeping an open mind with it and understanding what it is, I think that you can get some really good suggestions and advice. Not always. I know there's been some really sad stories about people following ChatGPT's advice, but on something like this, and Lori, I think it's really something for us to hear, because these things that we carry do affect our bodies. They affect them very strongly, and there's no way for that not to happen. And I'm not saying that physical ailments are all mental. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, like in my instance with CRPS, one of the driving factors is an autonomic nervous system that is running completely out of control. And so anything that I can do to not carry, to de-stress, to relax, anything I can do to calm my nervous system helps my CRPS. So, and anything I do that aggravates my nervous system makes my CRPS flare. So I definitely see the body mind connection there. And I think as I learn to lay more things down and not carry them, it will be less stress on my body. And I think that's good for anybody. Don't wait until you're ill to start de-stressing.
Most definitely. And it's really been on my mind a lot about what I carry, what I've been through, whatever. My entire family, all my other 4 sisters, we all have autonomic disorders of some kind, and how it affects each of us differently. And I've worried a lot, not worry, maybe I do worry, about causing this myself and believing what I believe. If God says that by his stripes I am healed, then how come I'm not? What part did I miss? What am I missing?
Yeah, I totally get that. Especially like, when God has healed people through me. And I mean, I just see the miracle like right in front of my eyes. And then I'm like, hey, what's up? Wait a minute. You're forgetting somebody
Hey, you forgot about me.
here. Come back.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
why
we're
does
just
it work
here to
on some
inspire.
things and not other things too?
Exactly. It's so random.
Well, your point to me makes me think of like, well, what if like we're saying, Lord, make my path easier. And he goes, okay, I'll take that I'll lighten your load. And the next day you get up to go and you start carrying everything again. And every day so he's like, oh, well, he picked it up again. He's carrying all that again. I just unloaded it for him, and he's went right ahead and picked it up again. And then it's like the same night, I'm like, make, you know, you know, help me, and lighten my load or whatever. And then I unknowingly keep picking it up right back up. I mean, it's that, it could be something like that, I guess. Um, but the thing I was thinking of, like, I love what you said there about caring, but not carrying. And it actually reminds me of something I heard a little while back, not too long ago, a few weeks ago, from a very successful person about the subject of caring. And this is a billionaire type, you know, finance or business person. And they're like, you care, but not too much. And you repeated it, care, but not too much. And I think that sort of opened my eyes to a different way of thinking that a successful business person who has a good heart kind of has to be that to some extent they have to alleviate that burden of caring so much that it then keeps them from doing what they need to do, because what they need to do will create so many good things in the world, and they want to care, but they can't care to the point that it paralyzes them. And so, and making that connection between that and what you said, um, made me think about how there is a huge difference in the way that these really rich, successful people think that, I'm going to just speaking of the ones who actually do care and do have a good heart, but they're still successful. But they understand that they do have to kind of lighten their load, and there is that need to kind of clear their path by letting go a little bit or not caring too much. Whereas, and they're like producers in the business world, and where the majority of us, and as we grow up, we are um, basically consumers. And as consumers, by watching all these movies and shows and everything. What do they tell you? What do you hear so often? Is the end of the movie, the person is and have a dramatic scene saying, I'll never forget you, and things like that, that makes it so like powerful and instills within us this need and this value on carrying, on caring so much, on and carrying it with things with us through through the rest of our lives and being impacted, and like we're a better person because we feel it, and we keep it with us and we carry it with us, and somehow that makes us gives us meaning, and that is sort of programmed into us our whole young lives. Whereas these people that were born into maybe a more well-to-do families that are already understanding that you're supposed to care but not care too much, are being taught a different thing, being taught a different way of looking at things, and understanding that it's okay to let go. And it really leaves the rest of us at a disadvantage because we're just not aware of that at all. Even, we think everyone's supposed to be, you know, it's you're not human if you don't care. You don't, if you don't feel it, you don't have a heart. You don't, what's wrong with you? It's kind of like, but so there, it just brings up the huge difference between the way certain um, groups of people can think and how it can affect us. That's all.
Yeah, it's hard to be an empathetic type person and not carry all of the things that affect everyone around you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I've always been very empathetic and um, sort and probably was programmed to be that way and to put myself into the other person's shoes, as they say. And um, and I'm almost too good at it. It's and it's like a reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction even, um, to do that. I have to stop myself from from doing that, because think about all that mental bandwidth it takes up, as well as the time, and then it distracts you from what you're trying to get done. So, I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but it can, when you're doing that multiple times a day, it has an impact. And then if you bring the emotions on and you're carrying those emotions, and you're not able to either let go of those or completely cleanse yourself of those so that you can then come at things with a clean slate, then um, wow, what an impact that can make.
Definitely, it's like the programming that is involved in all the agents, they're calling them now, that like with Chat GPT or whatever other AI you use, and programmed with all that information without the human aspect of emotions. And it's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah, I think the emotions are part of what make the feelings that we carry and can express and share with others. I think that's what's conveyed. It's not so much the words, or I mean, the words are part of it, but I think it's that feeling, that sense, that emotion, that energy that carries through, where Yeah, I appreciate what Catherine said earlier about how she used Chat GPT, and that's where she found out about the carrying part. But I, like you, Jason, can put myself in other people's shoes, and I'm good at that too. I can look at the other side, look at all aspects, and understand where they're coming from, and get that feeling, and then say and try to to convey what I'm feeling in that sense to help them, and put myself there as to how I feel or how I'd want them to respond to me if I was in that situation. And sometimes that's hard to just turn off and shut down or stop and not carry it with me even after I'm done with that situation, because it so impacts me and affects me that it takes me a while to process it, I guess is the best way. And then going back to like what Catherine said earlier in the chat about, about, being healed and stuff and things like that, because there are things in my life that I would like to have been healed from or, gone through. But I also think that God and Christ allow us to continue in our state because we are strong enough when we are able and capable of handling it, even though in the moments we're sitting there going, oh my God, why can't you just deliver me from this? But we're in that to be able to show the strength to others that in strength, for me, my strength and belief in God, that I will still push through and be something that others can look at and lean on to help them carry on in their struggles. So I think that all plays together, or at least for me, that's how it all plays together. But yeah, there are so many times when I just want to run away and say, stop, I don't want to care anymore. I don't want to, I just want to be, kind of just go back home and just be in my own world and not mess with anything either, you know. But that's not, to me, that's not living either. And I think that's not part of why I'm here, So that's, I think, how I look at it and rectify it and appease myself, for lack of a better word, to help me go through every day, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool, Dan. I was thinking, you're saying that, what if that's like, what if that's like our superpower, right? That, and so what if we spend a little time in the shoes of someone who is a good-natured person, but at the same time is not, um, is not that way at all, is, is not empathetic, or at least doesn't doesn't do that as kind of a knee-jerk reaction, goes around and just kind of gets things done for themselves and without that emotional attachment to everything we do, and kind of wear that suit a little bit. Um, Not that you have to stay in it, or, but you can utilize that for the moment. Um,
More of like a person that lives more in the moment versus overthinking everything, maybe. I feel like that's where I am a
yeah.
lot of times. It's just overthinking everything and just constantly running things around in my head of all the things I need to do, all the responsibilities that I have, all of the everything that needs to get done, and all the people who count on me, and all of the, just on and on and on and on and on. And, I'm definitely carrying all of that. And, I mean, if I could just let go of it, like you said, Jason, just asking the universe or whatever, just relieve me of this burden. And then it gets lifted, but then I turn right back around the next hour, whatever, and pick it right back up again, go right back into it, and it's like, gosh, how can I do it? Like what you were saying, Catherine, how can I care without carrying this with me all the freaking time? And how can I just stay in the moment? Because I feel like that's what it is. We only have the moment, right? We have right now, but we have, I don't know. There's that whole concept of only is right now. But at the same time, how can we not be thinking about the future and everybody that is counting on us and everything that's going on in our lives? And it's like I want to be in that moment. When I'm in the moment and I'm in the peace, it's peace. But as soon as I step out of that trance, if you will, or that moment of peace and go back to work, then it's all there. It's all still there. It's all the burden of everything. And uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to care without carrying it. How do you get the things done if you're not carrying it? I don't know.
I want to be a fairy flitting around through that field of flowers there you got.
That's what I want to do. I just want to do and around my flowers and not worry about all the stuff. But I've got all the people counting on me for the stuff. So, you know,
It seems to me it might be useful um, to deal with it as though it's a habit, or an addiction, um, in the way of and maybe useful to, if we can say, if you're religious, you may say, the Lord or universe, I need you to handle this for me, and while I go do these other things, and then when after you do these other things, you're all of a sudden you remember the thing that you cared about that bothered you, and then you need to have that ability to say, "Oh no, Lord, I still need you to take care of that for me. You take care of that for me." And um, if for like my case, it means, you know, I need to let it go, but I also need to know that something else is handling it, so to speak, But if you can have uh, some sort of guidance or some sort of a tool that will help you in the moment deal with it so you can immediately move on and keep on your path, I think that helps.
I'll sign up for one of those tools. I'll take it.
Take your pick. Take your pick. That's kind of one of them that whatever I figure out I'm going to use for whatever situation, I just decide I sort of have to make it a habit of using the tool. Um, so that if I feel like, if a thought comes into my head about, say, somebody that, hurt me in the past or something, then I can immediately say, oh no, and use the tool. No, I'm not going to do that now, and use the tool and move on, you know.
In a perfect world, right?
It's not a perfect world, so I just say, I say, well, I'm not going to allow that's in my past. I'm not going to allow that to affect my future. So I'm leaving that behind, not even giving it a moment of my time, and I move on. And then I just do and then my next thought is, what's next? What's the next step of whatever I'm working on? And I go right into it, and I don't even, so I've changed my focus. So I deal with it, let it go, remind myself I'm allowing that, no matter how much it still sits in my craw, or, affects me, how bad it makes me feel or whatever. Just, they're not worth my time. It's not worth my time. my place is in the future, and I'm focusing on that, and what's the next step of what I was trying to do before I had that thought, you know. So it kind of deals with that and moves me forward.
Be more Vulcan. Care, but don't carry.
That's right.
Kind
And
of
that's
stop
funny you
carrying.
said that, Jason, because I do remember one of the things that it advised was to, well, it knows I was a nurse. So it said, just think of it like, you come in, you take care of your patient all day, but then at the end of your shift, you give report off to somebody else. So you just logically kind of summarize it, and then you report it off to the other nurse, and then you go home and you try to leave work at work, and just use that kind of thought process to get through some of these things. And I thought that's a great way. Hand it off to somebody else. Not literally, but
But part of my issue in that, for me is I can't. I can hand off life, but I can't hand off life because that's life, and it's like part of everything that's going on in my life. So sometimes to turn or just summarize it and turn it off is hard because there are aspects of it that pertain to even what's going on right now. So in that time, it's like learning to, I guess, maybe separate out the aspects that are not so pertinent. Maybe learning how to sign off that part, saying, okay, here's my report, or here's my that's done, taken care of, over for today. Turn that off, shut that down. Don't kind of like the work thing. But even then, there are lots of times when in my life over jobs and stuff and things that, I would go home after work and think, okay, well, I didn't get that done today, so tomorrow I need to go in and make that a priority, to make that first, even though it's probably on my list of things to do tomorrow for when I get in. But at home, I'm already planning or trying to, as well as do everything that I've got to do now that I'm at home, and take care of the life stuff at home and this and that. So that's sometimes easier said than done. Theoretically, I would love to do that.
That aspect of you being a nurse and just reporting off and handing it off to another person really shed a light or turned a light on with how things can get mixed up, because the person that I am and I'm reporting off and saying, here, take over this, that next person has a different blueprint. And that's why maybe iatrogenic causes are the leading cause of death.
The what causes? What did you say?
Iatrogenic, meaning the doctors or the hospitals, whatever, caused
Oh,
it.
gotcha.
Well, I have a really huge heart for nurses and doctors that deal with that, because like you're
Oh,
saying, they have to
absolutely.
take that on every single day and deal with it. So they're a good case study for that. But Dan, you made me realize and remember that there is another aspect to it. What I was saying is that we also have this feeling about that situation or whatever, dealing with that, what I was speaking of, in that we have this fear of like, well, what if it happens again? And so part of it is also deciding, well, what, being able to move on from it and give it, give it to God, so to speak, and move on. And what's the next step? Part of it is like, part of, at least for me, is part of me saying, well, what if it happens again? And there's this fear of it will happen again. And what will happen when I think of it again? What will happen when I feel that pain again? When when a whole nother instance of it happens again? And so you do have to you do have to decide on how you're going to take action on it the next time. Like, okay, I'll be ready for this next time because I'll I'll see the sign of this, or I'll see the red flags here. And when I see those red flags, I'll know, and I'll take this other course of action. Now, now, you know, take it off my shoulders, God, and what's the next step? You do have to kind of also deal with that, deal with that thought process, I think. Because if we just say, well, that's not going to bother me, I'm not going to let it bother me and keep moving on, there's there is that still going to be that fear of, well, what do I do in the next time that happens? How am I going to act? I'm going to get hurt. What if I act even worse and make it worse? Or you know, or digs me a deeper hole, or it's like you don't. So you do have to do a little bit of mindset work, I think, in that aspect to free yourself to be able to move on to that next step. For me, at least.
Definitely. And there's always the part of the responsibility part. I don't want to be responsible for that.
I agree, but sometimes we have to, at some point, take some responsibility because we're also one of the ones involved in that aspect too. So we still have to take some of that responsibility and shoulder. And you're right, maybe say, okay, this is where I'm at, this is understanding, and I'm putting this part here. But if it ever arises again, I now know that I can take other steps to maybe mitigate or change or bring a different outcome. And that's maybe that's part of the process of looking at stuff and not replaying it so much for the replaying of how I could have changed it then, but reframe it and say, okay, that is done, it's over, and I can't change it, but what can I change going forward? And that's what I try to do now, is what can I do moving forward to make that change and alleviate the stress that I went through this other time and bring about a different result, and hopefully the desired result that works for everybody and makes everybody's life more palatable is the word but it's not the word I'm thinking, but more to move forward so all sides can move forward, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a good point too about responsibility. I'm in the camp of believing that taking responsibility actually empowers you to and to have more control over the situations in the future. So if you take responsibility, then you realize your part in it, and you can have a different outcome based on your own actions. and it, and realize that sometimes it can be as simple as recognizing you have the opportunity to slow things down a bit. I mean, how often are we put in a position where then we're made to feel like we have to make a decision right then and there? We're put on the spot or given some sort of a gotcha question or whatever, and because we are empathetic, seeing it from somebody else's eyes, or in their shoes, we feel the urgency that they feel, and we and so we don't take the moment to go, well, let me think about this for a moment and I'll get back to you. So there's power in that. There's power in what you just said there, Dan. I appreciate it. And what Samantha was saying about caring but not carrying it along with you all the time. How freeing is that? That's important. It doesn't make us a better person because we carry all the sadness and that even others have in the world. I mean, it's great that we have that empathy, I think. It's great that we have that. However, we need to be okay with allowing ourselves to not carry that weight around with us all the time.
For sure. For sure.
And we can actually be a better person, or play a better role in this world if we are free of that to a great extent, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, if we're able to care without carrying, then we're not as stressed out for one, and we can work through things without it being so stressful. I mean, I keep saying stress, but disempowering with that stress, because if we are constantly stuck in that rut of rewinding the thing over and over in our head, or continually going over the possible consequences of a situation, or I mean, how much time do we spend in our head with all of that mumbo jumbo that isn't going to affect us right here in this moment? It's either A, we're worried about the future, or we're afraid of something happening, or B, we're rewinding and going back and over and over again about something that's already happened in the past. And that's not helpful in any way. It keeps us stuck. So I think being able to let go of a lot of that and not just carrying it around with us all the time is huge. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
remembering the tools to let go, let God, right? Let go and let God.
Yeah, so to speak. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And trust that, I always have to remind myself that I'm going to do the right thing for the right situation. I don't know why I'm so freaked out or upset or worried about whatever is coming at me, because whatever happens, I know I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be able to handle it. It may be stressful, or it may be, I may have to figure it out or whatever, but it's generally not as bad as I make it out to be in my head. So I just have to keep reminding myself, look, you got this, quit freaking stressing about it. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. It's been
But
a
in that,
great conversation.
also going back to what you were saying, Samantha, yeah, we normally know, yeah, we got this. We've lived through so much before. We've made it through those struggles, those ups and downs. But I know for me, it's always that little bit of the unknown of what, even though this is similar to what I've gone through before, there's still that not knowing what still could possibly happen and play out, depending on, because it's not the same parties as the first time around. So we're still dealing with a whole new set of unknowns and parameters, kind of like in a old algebra equation, the x value that you don't know that you place in there to, represent what, whatever you put in there is what changes the outcome. So I think that's the part that I focus on and I look at, and I'm like, okay, so what possibly could go wrong this time that's different from the other times, even though that once I know it, I'll probably be able to figure out the wherewithal and way. But it's that part that I focus on that gets me so caught up and like, oh no, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Or what? And then I'm going back to the caring and stressing and caring, all rolled up into one. And it just
Oracle of
makes,
why
and it's
I
just, and again, like you said, maybe if just let go, trusting more for in my own belief that God has this, that He will help show me the way out and figure it out. And if it's a struggle to work my way through it, I will get through it. It's just going to be maybe longer than I want, more issues to take care of, but I'll get through. But I don't think of it like
example
that
of why I
in those times.
perfect example of why I don't like algebra.
I'm always solving for why.
Hence why I like accounting. Both sides have to equal. You have to be able to have both sides equal and know that it balances. I like that. That's the way I like, and that's the way I operate. I don't like the variables and the X's and the unknowns, because then that just throws so much in there.
You always want it to balance out, huh?
All right.
But see, in your profession, you have to be okay with it not balancing.
No, that don't work. That does not work. We
It
need it
usually
balanced
doesn't
on
balance. So
both sides. Then I have to figure out where it's not balancing. Go find the wrong entry or the wrong journal entry or the wrong aspect that got misapplied.
Right. It'll be all right.
there's
And
an
it
entry for
can't
lost funds too.
and it can't be and it can't just be, oh well, we'll just make this undeposited funds thing make it balance, or I'll make this journal entry to make it balance, because somehow somebody else that will come in and audit and look at that, they'll say, oh, but why did you do this? Oh, just because
It was a fractions of cents adjustment. It's
yeah.
fine. It's fine. Don't worry that it added up to $10,000. It's all good.
Because
Those fractions of cents.
I've dealt with that, and I had to write off $5,000 worth of something that I could not figure out what it was.
Yeah.
After getting everything else balanced and corrected and fixed from 2 prior people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like it. That's why I like life balanced. I like it
Yeah.
too.
See, well, that's a whole thing. I just came up for me recently. I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to pay off this one loan. And then I look at my QuickBooks and I look at the bank balance and I'm like, hang on, that's not right. Got to go back and figure that out. All right, guys.
Guys,
Well,
so
I gotta
nice to-
jump off. I got stuff I gotta do. I know you guys have stuff to do too. So
Yeah. Have a
everybody have an
great week.
awesome, amazing week. And for those of you who are watching this as a recording, give us a like and share it with anybody you think would enjoy it. With that, have a great, awesome, amazing week. We'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.